Well, let me put it this way. I don't think they are too ambitious, but circumstances have created extraordinary challenges. The Secretary General of the United Nations has called for us to rescue the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. And if I may for a moment just point out, first of all, the 2030 Agenda is an extraordinary agreement amongst the nations of the world in 2015 that these are the great risks of our time that we can only face by working together. So the 17 SDGs really are a translation of major risks that require us to work together as a family of nations. And I think nothing in today's world would suggest that this was the wrong analysis or indeed the wrong goals. But we've come through a pandemic. We are now facing also enormous insecurity, the war of Russia and Ukraine causing a great deal of further disruption. Also, the ability of the international community to work together effectively is clearly being affected by these developments. So are the targets and timelines really realistic at the moment? Well, to many, they may seem out of reach, but let's also not mistake the fact that on some goals, there is significant progress. COVID, in part, extended social protection, social safety mechanisms, even temporary basic income schemes to a far larger number of people than maybe would have happened without the pandemic. We still have an aggregate increase in the number of poor people in the world, but countries responded differently. Even on climate change, you could argue that if you go back to before the pandemic and where we are right now, the goals that have since emerged and also were discussed in Glasgow, major stimulus packages that have been put in place, including those of the European Union, but also many other countries, they point an acceleration in terms of deployment of renewable energy infrastructure. So the story is mixed, but let us be very clear, particularly to the poorest countries, the last 2.5 years have been a terrible setback. And in that sense, we do need to look very carefully at where to prioritize both the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, but also mobilization of financing, domestic and international.